Good. Today we're going to have just a short chat around what I call the myth of the project plan. Now, I've been involved with projects and project management and organizations that practice project management quite intensely for a long time, and it's interesting to always see and try to understand what someone means by talking about a project plan. Now we know that the flow of project management is divided into planning or initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and then closing. Um, and we know there's certain activities that's being practiced and certain deliverables that need to be executed in the project plan phase or stage of your project life cycle. But it's an interesting question to ask is what is a project plan? Now, to talk about that, first we just need to quickly rewind a bit and talk about what I call the project management love triangle. It's the most well known or the most standard version of that is time, cost, and quality. I always take it a bit further and say yes, your project deliverables or your constraints, actually it's a bit more than time, cost, and quality. It is time, cost, and then the what. And in the what part of the triangle, that's your quality, your scope, your performance. You can even put your health and safety there. So I always say when you're dealing with a project and you're dealing with the triangle says, what am I going to do and how? When am I going to do it, and then what's it going to cost. So if you want to divide that into a flow, you can say first I figure out what, the scope, the performance. I need to figure out the quality in which I'm going to do my performance or deliver my project. And once I've got that, I can go and look further into scheduling and to make sure that I know when I'm going to do the what. And then once you have that, you're going to go over into the costing, which says, okay, now that I know when I'm going to do what, I can link that to cost. I can set up my baseline. I can start activity-based costing and so forth. So that's the flow of the triangle. Now, when it comes to talking about the project plan, I always say let's distill a project plan or everything down to its lowest level. So when I talk about a project, what is the lowest level of a project? The lowest level of a project is doing something. Is you've got a goal and you need to execute something to get to that goal. If you say the lowest level definition of a project management or of project management, you can say, well, it actually distills down to a bunch of activities, some stuff that I need to do. Now, when I talk about the project plan, I say, okay, now I've got two other dimensions. I say, I know the what, so that's your activities. I know the when, and that is your schedule, and I know the cost. That's your project cost or your project baseline. So if you want to really say what's the lowest level of a project plan for me, I would say that is your triangle distilled a bit further. Now, so first you plan for what you need to do. It's a scoping process. It's an intensely consultative process with your client or project sponsor. Get out of that what you need to do. Make your list. Put your list in the schedule. Put your schedule in the costing. Cost the whole thing. Put a baseline up, and that is the lowest level. But we must also remember there's a bit more to project management than just that. It's not as simple as that. So then we're going to put another layer on top of that. You can say, well, okay, the planning, scheduling, figuring out what to do, figuring out the scope is not as simple as just saying, I'll just figure out what to do. We use a bit of a process. With the process that we follow, first we go into the goals and objectives. We figure out what is the goal of my client in terms of the project, what does it want to solve. Then we say we need to have an idea of the stakeholders. Well, they might add value to the scoping process, but they also can help us downstream later on when we need to manage the project in the execution phase. Once we know the stakeholders, the stakeholder process, the stakeholder analysis, the stakeholder action, you can say, well, most of that action is really comes back to communication. So we deal with project communication over there, set up a project communication plan, which is part of your feedback, reporting, and how and when you will say what to who. Then you go into the development of the detail of the scope. That's a whole process on its own. You identify the risk in there, because the risk can add value to the, or not add value, can add activities to the scope of the project. Yeah, and then it's the work breakdown structure, the scope of works, and you get to the other end with your list of activity, the stuff that you need to do to finish the projects. And once you can do that, you pop that into a scheduling tool. It can either be a critical path diagram or a Gantt chart or something like that. Once you have that, you can connect cost to that. The nice thing about the Gantt chart is you can actually populate your Gantt chart with resources, maybe cost. You can add that up. You can have a nice project baseline, which is cost, resource needed over time. The S-curve, very nice thing to have. You use activity-based costing to figure out exactly what is the cost, all the cost that's included in every activity. And you can add that up to get your baseline and your project budget, and then the project plan is finished. So obviously, so what I really just want to talk about, or sort of distill down today, is the simplicity of the project plan, the myth of the project plan, because it can be anything. And the lowest level of definition is really the triangle which you are planning for the execution of the project.